Party people in the place to be, what's going on? It's me. I just got finished watching The Brothers. Yes, I know. This is long overdue movie review after all. So, this movie was pretty decent. It was definitely 2001. There are definitely some things that made it 2001, and it's funny because there's definitely some things in there that are probably still in a lot of like the direct-to-DVD black movies of today, but in 2001 it kind of worked. First things first, the cast. The cast was amazing. It was it was amazing to see 20 years removed now. Wow, that's fucking strange. But 20 years removed from a young Gabrielle Union. I don't know why. I do know why. I blanked on her name, but a young Gabrielle Union, Morris Chestnut, D.L. Hughley, back in the day, without a 10-gallon, 10-foot stupid hat on his head. Shamar Moore, looking like he's actually trying to act instead of just stand there, like he learned how to do, and stand there and say nothing badly, like he learned how to do on Criminal Minds. Oh my gosh, the actor looking like he's trying to act. Bill Bellamy back in the day. This cast is great. Clifton Powell playing that same this was still in the midst of him always playing that conniving evil dude. This was still in the midst of that. This is just before Ray. So like Ray kind of changed that because, you know, you might think that, you know, maybe his character, you know, they leave it a little ambiguous as to whether his character in Ray actually took money from Ray. So that was kind of like his journey out of being the, you know, no good dude in all his roles, whether it be Rock or this. But yeah, he's still in the middle of that, playing Morris Chestnut's dad. And he looks just like as soon as they turn around, like walking in the camera shot for the first time, I was like, oh yeah, that's great casting because they look just alike. It's a love movie. I thought it would just be like just some regular old movie, but I guess it was back in 2001. Like all that stuff was just love. Like it just kind of, everything was around romance and learning a lesson and all that stuff. But yeah, so Morris Chestnut is afraid of marriage. He keeps having a nightmare of a chick in a wedding dress holding a gun in his face while he's at the altar and he's trying to run and all this other stuff. They even have a shot of him running. No, let's not do that. This is only 10 years removed from Ricky. No zig pattern. No, just straight up like he could outrun a bullet. This is just 10 years removed from that. And they got him in this movie. I think that had to be the director. That had somebody on set had to say, DL must have suggested like you should have him run like it was the hood. Like that, because that was a great visual. Yeah, so they're four dudes. Let's talk about the things I really liked about this movie the most. Tamala Jones. I love that girl. I've always loved seeing her on screen. There was a movement maybe in the past year or so where Twitter was trying to get Regina Hall over as, you know, this amazing comedian. Twitter and Black Facebook were trying to get this amazing comedian. We gotta give more respect, put some respect on her name. She's so she's been doing all these appreciation Regina Hall threads. Okay, great. Before her was Tamala Jones. Because in this movie she keeps up with D.L. Hughley. Like, in terms of, like, funny. Like, she's not the same character. Like, they're not just going back and forth. But, like, she keeps up with him in terms of her style of comedy and her character. Like, I laughed just as much as anything else in this movie when she did or said something on screen. Like, it was all fantastic. I remember seeing her first in For Your Love. So I liked her since then. Like, I liked her comedy styling since then. This is just before that, and oh my god, so good. It's so good. Probably the best part of the movie. So yeah, Morris Chestnut is really the main center of the movie and his relationship with Gabrielle Union. they have this really stupid meet cute, like that whole meet cute situation. Like it was all so this is a romantic comedy with some drama parts in it. Like it's tropes aplenty. It's tropes aplenty. They have Morris Chestnut's therapist, played by Vanessa Bell Calloway, which they basically have her as like his conscience or his guiding light. You know what I mean? They might as well have just had her always in red every time we saw her, and her name be Dr. C. Upid. Like the way that she, was directing him, like it was very. I don't think that's like therapy doesn't necessarily focus like therapy is all can go many places, but hers seemed specifically dedicated to him trying to figure out about love. Bill Bellamy was good to a point in this movie. There was a point where I don't know if it was in the editing process or in the directing process, but Bill Bellamy starts to go from funny guy with the one-liners to kind of cartoon. He goes into cartoon mode, and it's a tonal shift. Like it's still a tonal shift. Like yes, it's comedy. Yes, it's the same person playing the same character, but in the beginning he's not complete cartoon. Like they do the stereotype stuff. Like they do the sitcom stereotype of he's a player. Right, and he's got all these women who are all mad at him. Like, okay, but it ends up paying off. Actually, it doesn't end up really paying off for him. Oh, it does. It does, because his whole story is Aloma Wright, aka Laverne from Scrubs, is his mother, and his issues stem from her not showing him love and or affection, like not saying I love you or hugging him in 10 years since Ricky got shot. And that's where his issues come from. And so he then projects, like it's very in your face with he's got problems because of his mom. And they show the relationship with the mom. Okay, fine. If you want to explore that in this type of movie and that's the reasoning for why you gave these guys these characteristics, I give you points for at least going that far. But near the end, it almost, I don't know if there were some timing issues, scheduling issues, I don't know if they needed filler or what, but there's a point where they make him, it's really really, I know exactly where that point is. That point is because he's tired of dating black women. He's a lawyer. The judge that he recently kicked to the curb, she puts him in contempt of court, and so he swears off all black women. His mother's black, and dark black was Laverne. Yes, and so he then is like, I'm just gonna, y'all, like, I'm just gonna date white women, partially because her mother is mad that one of her baby's fathers, because there's two, left her and got with a Hawaiian chick. And so she just goes through the list of everybody that's not black is white. And so I can't believe that your father left me for that white bitch, basically. And so they make it so that Bill Bellamy's rejection of that is that he's going to go find himself a white woman, and he does. She's a self-defense trainer. And that comes into play when the judge again pops up while he's out with the self-defense instructor. Then they get in a fight, and then he gets mad at her for getting in the fight, and as they're getting in the car, he says, I thought you were all the same, or I thought you'd be different. And she comes over and is mad at him. You thought that I'd be different just because I was white? How dare you? I'm going to kick your ass now. And then he gets in the car and leaves. That battle scene in the diner is where it turned. Is where his character turned. Because later in the movie, they're at Shamar Moore's bachelorette party. He's drunk off of beer and light beer at that. And he's the he-man woman hater of the group. And so he goes into how marriage sucks and all that other stuff to Shamar Moore. And Shamar Moore gets mad at him because, he's about to get married, even though he's not really sure about it. He's rushing into it. So he gets mad at Bill Bellamy and gives him a monologue. the cuts in between this monologue are half of the reason for my rating at the end not being a complete 15. Oh, you didn't know? It wasn't going to be a complete 15. It wasn't Ghostbusters. So they intersplice cuts back and forth more than even YouTube videos now do. You know, more than the famous YouTube videos do. And so every time they shoot back to Bill Bellamy, his face gets stupider and stupider and stupider, like it had been to Jupiter. It gets dumber and dumber every time. And that's when I got, whatever much of me was into this movie, got yanked out. Had the movie said, fucking get over here. And believability gone. Just disbelief, non-suspension. Is that how it goes? Suspension of disbelief. Yes, the disbelief was unsuspended. It was back on, it was late, it wasn't suspending anything. I was like, this editor hates this, hates this movie company, director, producer, somebody. Because that shit was terrible. I get it. Especially in rom-coms. You know, you don't necessarily see a lot of held shots, held frames for too long. They don't go for too long. They cut back and forth because it's cotton candy. It's the cottonness of cotton candy of movies, right? But this is WWE Raw levels of supercuts. This is, I should look up, I don't think he was, but I should, because Vince wouldn't let him go, but I should look up if Bucky Beaver fucking directed this shit. Because, I swear, director Gary Harwood, no, it wasn't Bucky Beaver. Because the cuts in this scene were so terrible. And they're mostly because, it's twofold. A, because there were so many of them, and two, because of the face on Bill Bellamy was, and every time it got worse. And every time it got worse. Now, maybe they did that because that way you wouldn't pay too much attention to Shemar Moore's acting, but honestly, Shemar Moore, I saw more out of Shemar Moore in this movie than I've seen in the rest of his entire career. His entire career. Including Criminal Minds, including that time he co-hosted the Grammys on CBS and they tried to have him out there and he was stiff as a board, including his Soul Train hosting job, which many people would blame on the death of Soul Train. Yes, all of that. This is the best Shemar Moore performance I have ever seen in my life. His demo reel should only be this. This is the best acting I've ever seen out of him. If you had a funny line near the end, that was fantastic. His storyline is that he had been a player, but he found a woman. He was in love with her. D.L. Hughley doesn't get along with her, but that's fine. She's gonna stick up for herself, and they're getting married after only like 2 months. So Shemar Moore has his doubts, and in the middle of all this movie, he calls her and tells her via answering machine, "Ask your parents," that he's not going to marry her 2 weeks before the wedding. So now he's ducking her. Shemar Moore, go pick up Bill Bellamy. He and Morris Chestnut go pick up Bill Bellamy. And while they're there, she shows up and she shoots out Bill Bellamy's place. They think it's one of Bill Bellamy's jilted lovers, but it's actually his girlfriend out there in the wedding dress that Shemar Moore, or the Chestnut. I keep mixing up the model-esque black man names. Like they all sound fake, but she's in the wedding dress that Chestnut saw in his dreams, and he goes out there and he talks to her and he talks her down. And then she shows up with Shemar Moore at the wedding at the end for Morris Chestnut's parents and Tatiana M. Ali's parents. Listen. I understand the idea of comedy. I understand that black people, and this is a black movie, or it's a movie predominantly starring black people. It's a movie. You can watch it. It doesn't matter what race you are. I understand that black people don't always have, especially in 2001, the best representation for what healthy is in terms of mental and romantic lives. We get songs and music videos and movies where, abusive relationships are kind of celebrated. And this is one of them, because they didn't play Shamar's girlfriend's psychosis off as funny at all. So all the humor that, it all went to Tomala Jones, and I understand that, because even that was slim Tomala too. That was pre-enhancement Tomala, and that was pre-Castle Tomala. So she had a slim little body, but she still had a little bit of a body. You know what I'm saying? But they gave all the humor over to her. I get it. She's got all that talent. She's got all that funny, and it radiated on screen. Shamar Moore's girl, though, didn't really get that humor. Didn't really get any likability. They immediately on screen, at this point, we have a much better relationship with Bill Bellamy than we do with her. We actually like Bill Bellamy to an extent at this point in the movie. We don't know her. She comes in and sounds like and acts like the, kind of, thorn in the side of the friend's girlfriend in a movie like this, right? Even probably a stopgap for the real love of Shamar Moore's life that'll show up later in the movie, right? So that is there in the beginning and it sticks, and it doesn't come off, and there's no likability that comes on to that sandwich at any later. You know what I'm saying? Like she doesn't get that moment to be that way. There's a scene where like all the women in the movie are drinking. She gets a chance there, but again, she's overshadowed by Gabrielle Union. She's overshadowed by everybody else in that room. And that's not necessarily an issue with the actress, maybe, but it's you got big shoes in that room. You got Jennifer Lewis, you got Tatiana Ali, you got Gabrielle Union, you got Tomala Jones. Now, other than Jennifer Lewis, actually even Tatiana Ali, because we've seen her grow up at that point. So you got Tomala Jones and Gabrielle Union, who are very good at that limited exposure. Like they've only been around maybe a couple years at that point. Each of them, I think about a couple years at that point, each of them, right? The actress playing Shamar's girl she has a line. She had, I'll let me borrow yours then, or I'll take, yours, you ain't using it or whatever, and that's cool. But her character development doesn't allow me to even have the option of not being upset that she's at the fucking wedding with Shamar Moore at the end after she shoots a place out. And nothing in their relationship, the time that they're on screen together, shows that they, have this unspeakable, undying chemistry, or you can see why she would fall for him and he would fall for her on any kind of substantive level at all. Even D.L. Hughley and Tomala Jones, the story there is D.L. married her because she got pregnant, and a few years later, and they're in the marriage, the evil marriage, right? They bicker back and forth. Even with all that and the bickering back and forth and that backstory, you see why they would be attracted to and fall in love with each other at some point. They are on the same wavelength in terms of, like, at least the same wavelength of funny that they're on comes across to the audience. Like, I can see why these two would be together somehow. Like it's one of it's almost like Fred and Ethel. Like you kind of like at points it's like, okay, I get it, I see, right? Like that doesn't happen with Shamar Moore and his girl in this movie, and that's a shame to her and a shame to the writers who made it that way, or the editors that may have left her scenes on the floor. That's a shame. But yeah. Let's see. There's DL and Tommy Lee Jones end up getting back together. They all get back together. Everybody lives happily ever after because one of these movies. But this whole thing is centered around. What all that is centered around from the sisters' perspective. This is the brothers, but the sisters have a meeting. From the sisters' perspective, the whole, particularly Jennifer Lewis, the whole thing revolves around the last piece of something. Honey, you want to know how a man loves you? If you're sitting there and you're all snuggled up and you're all cuddled up and you're in the bed. This is a terrible, I apologize. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I know that impression just made it so that I was on your list, Miss Lewis, but bear with me. And you're there, and you got the last piece of chicken. It's a terrible impression. And you got the last. Oh shit! I'm sorry. You got the last piece of chicken. How you know if the man loves you is if he offers it to you. I don't know. There's a little Cat Williams in there somewhere. I don't know. But that's where the whole movie centers around that silly idea. I wish I could say that wasn't realistic in how that may or may not happen. I wish I could say that. But I've dated enough women to know yeah. It may not happen the exact same way. It may not be a party with other girls, etc., etc. It may be just watching TV or listening to some song. But at some point, a goofy idea about how this relationship you're in with them, whatever, hook up, whatever, how that plays out. A goofy idea about that gets lodged in there. Despite logic, it gets lodged in there. Well, the only way I'll know is if he offers me the last piece of pizza. The only way I'll know is if he... It's usually not one thing. Emotions, sometimes it is. Sometimes it is. But a lot of times it's not. A lot of times it's multiple things. A lot of times it's, they do this or they do that for me, or they are this type of person, or they say this, or they look like this, or something. There's a hodgepodge. There's a mix. It doesn't just hinge on, he didn't solve that algebra question in fucking enough time, so I guess that means I gotta pack my bags and leave. Like that's not usually what that means. But so the movie centers on that. And we get to the ending because the men, by the way, Morris Chestnut does it, and who else does it? One of the other dudes. Shamar Moore. Shamar Moore does it, where they just take the last piece of whatever it is without thinking about it, and the camera holds on the face of the woman like, guess he doesn't love me. It must not be true love. He ate the last popcorn, and fuck him for eating the last. Like that shit. But it happens in real life. And it may not be exactly like that, because in real life, my experience has been it immediately starts into an argument about nothing. I can't believe you. What? What are we arguing? And I end up with my hands like this. What are we arguing about? And not knowing what the hell happened. And I've seen it in real time with other people, but I won't put them on Front Street. This is my channel. I mean, I can and I should. Nobody's watching, but anyway, it hangs on that stupid premise, and we get to the end, and Chestnut offers her the last piece of cake, and they make a note of showing you that there's a piece of wedding cake leaving, and there's nothing else left on the thing, and then he reaches over and grabs his plate and says, "Here, finish mine." Right? Okay. Get it. Another goofy thing in this movie, the montage. Why was there a montage in this movie? And it was a montage of nothing. Half the montage was them playing basketball. The other half of the montage was real. Like, it was cheesy. It was bad. It was bad, and even for 2001, I think it was cheap. It looked like made for TV. It looked like straight to DVD shit. It looked like straight to DVD shit. It was really bad. Because Tatiana Ali wasn't on board with her mom and dad, because her mom and dad divorced. Tatiana Ali wasn't on board with her mom and dad getting together. So there's a part in the montage where dad's coming by to see mom, and like he says hi to Tatiana, who walks up and looks at mom like, I told you I don't like that, you know, like. And Bill Bellamy's car getting beat up, and basketball, and Dia arguing with his wife, and basketball, and Shamar Moore, I don't know, at work, and basketball, and another basketball shot, and like, it was that weird shit in the montage, and it was bad. Like, the editing was bad, and they cut to like grayscale shit, like, or brown scale shit, like the faded picture looking shit. That was bad. It was bad. Ugh, it was bad. Trying to think what else. The music was cool. Music was good. The acting overall was good. Like I said, I was even surprised by Shamar Moore, like, showing up. Like, this is the best Shamar Moore performance I've ever seen in my life. It's interesting to go back to a movie like this 20 years later and see what Gabrielle Union is now versus what she was back then. And I've seen that version of her because she did a guest spot on West Wing, and I was a huge fan of West Wing for a number of years. And so when I rewatched it, I'd eventually go to the episode where she and Dule Hill hooked up for an episode, right? So I saw that. I didn't really see her movies back then, but I saw that. And then to see what she morphed into today, like this ridiculous ass powerhouse with sexy ass muscles and looking happier than probably she did on anything else back then, but like acting, like doing some good great facial work and all that. Gabrielle Union's never been a bad actress, but like seeing how good she already was then with little stuff like that was interesting. To look at Morris Chestnut, I remember the hype over Morris Chestnut, and I think there were a couple other of the dudes. Omar Epps was like third on the list. There was another dude, the dude that married Indina Menzel. Kevin Hill, that dude, Milk Dud Head. And I think there was a couple other ones, and I think Shamar Moore was the other one, right? Of those, heartthrob looking guys back then. And I remember thinking, I'm like, okay, but Chestnut's good. Chestnut's a good actor, right? And he was in like some legit shit, right? He's got like some bona fides as an actor as far as his resume is concerned. I thought like he'd, like looking now, I'm like, I thought Chestnut would have been bigger, right? I thought like Chestnut's now probably, I think the last thing I saw him in was that shitty Perfect Man movie with the new flexy sexy ass dude. But yeah, I'm like, I thought he would have been bigger, higher scale at this point. But that's interesting. DL, basically the same, just a little bit older, and now got 20 pounds of hat on his head every time you fucking see him. Goofy fucking hat. But yeah, seeing that cast, Bill Bellamy, which I haven't seen in a long time, Shamar Moore, who seemed to regress as an actor after this. I don't know what happened. But that cast come together, young Tatiana Ali come together. It was cool. It was interesting to see that difference. In terms of the movie as a whole, I gotta say, the montage, I'll leave the stupid cake thing off, but the montage and Shamar Moore's chick shooting at people, our main characters who we like, who the movie has spent the last hour and a half telling us that we like. It's not Ghostbusters. Out of $15, I can't go higher than I honestly gotta say $10.50. I can't go higher than $10.50 out of $15. As good as the good parts are, and again, the best part, Tommy Lee Jones. Period. End of everything. Best part of that movie. The bad parts are so bad. The montage is so bad. The time filler. And by the way, that's time they could have used making me like Shamar Moore's girlfriend. But instead, they have stupid montages and different bar scenes and the stupid fight scene with the women in the soul food shack. Come on. Come on, son. And as much as I'm going to give them credit for giving Bill Bellamy's play a character more of a backstory in a movie like this, the backstory and the way he engages in it and the way it's resolved, unsatisfying. I get what they were doing. It was plainly obvious. It's at the end of the movie, at the wedding, he goes up to a white woman. He does the reverse of "Don't be a menace to South Central while drinking your juice in the hood." He goes up to the white woman and says, "Excuse me," and then turns to the not as attractive black woman that's standing there next to her and starts talking to her. I get it, but I don't like it. I get it, but it's cheap. I get it, but it's, it's lazy. So yeah, I think I mentioned that Gabrielle Union's character at one point dated Morris Chestnut's father, Clifton Powell. A couple dates, they never had sex, long time ago. But now that's another subplot where they got to figure out how they're going to tell him, and then he finds out. That's what causes the third act breakup. He finds out about it before she gets the chance or before she's ready to tell him. And because at least they don't do the I almost did, but it was never the right time. She couldn't figure out how to tell. Like it wasn't like I wanted to tell you, but then somebody interrupted me, or I wanted to tell you, but then I had to drive away. You know what I mean? Like it's not that. It's she just couldn't figure it out. So good points for that. But again, they had all these things going on. 100 an hour and 42 minutes to fill. So 100 minutes to fill, and they couldn't make more. They couldn't cut some of that out, or something, the montage out to make more room for why I should care about Shamar Moore and or his girlfriend. Yeah, $10.50 sounds just about right. Yeah, that sounds just about right. Party people. I know, I'm terrible, I'm awful, but honestly, if we're being honest, it should be $7.50. I'm being nice because of how good the performances were, okay? It really, because it's about half and half, honestly. But I'm being good and saying 1050 here. I'm comfortable with that because again, the parts that I liked enough to bump it back up. So yeah, but 1050 out of $15. Party people, you got to get on those click and clack machines and tell me how terrible I am. Especially if, you Hotep. Yes, you Hotep. How dare you not like something that's black? How dare you? How dare you? How dare you? Okay, well, do that down there in the comments section. Like, share, subscribe. Subscribestar.com/thereal469. Patreon.com/thereal469 helps keep the lights on at the party. Party people, that ain't bad. Not as bad as that fucking montage. Anyway, as always, cheers.
I'm a nice guy, I'm a nice place, with a nice smile on my nice face. Turn your back and I'm making sure my night's straight. And when you're out of town, I'll be making sure your wife's straight.